Joining me in studio right now, the senior senator from the great state of Texas, Senator John Cornyn, in studio this time. Welcome to the studios.
Well, it's good to be back in Lubbock, and thanks for having me in. It's better than just talking to you over the phone, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being here today. I want to start off, before we get to border issues and anything else, yesterday, I think it was the Texas Tribune, they had reported about the Texas Democrats launching the Cornyn War Room. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
They're watching you. The Democrats are. What do you think overall about, the Democrats in Texas? They're gunning to turn this state blue, and they're going after you in this election cycle.
Well, we knew they would because they came very close in 2018, which was certainly a wake-up call to all of us. And so we're getting prepared early, and we're ready for whatever comes at us. But Chad, the real war that's going on now is between people like Chuck Schumer, who is trying to recruit candidates that suit the East and West Coast donors, and Texas Democrats who prefer a guy like Joaquin Castro from San Antonio. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah. So what did you and your campaign and your office learn from what we just saw with the Cruz campaign going up against Beto? What did y'all learn? What did you take away from that in order to, like you said, you're out there running already, which is kind of surprising people.
Yeah, well, one of the things we learned is that Texas is changing. People are moving here from other parts of the country because we're creating jobs, and we need to be talking to them. And we got a little complacent. We've been talking to each other in primaries, and last time I ran, I had 7 primary opponents, and the general election was pretty much a walk in the park.
Yeah.
That's all over. And I think what you'll see is more unity among Republicans from the White House all the way to the courthouse. We're going to be part of that, an important part of that, I hope, because we can't take it for granted anymore. These folks want to turn Texas into California and New York, and we can't let that happen on our watch.
We're visiting with Senator John Cornyn here on the program. Do you find it interesting? There were comments that I received yesterday on social media, and I get
saw
them all
you got
the
a little dumpster fire.
Yeah, a little bit. And thanks for the retweet. It's funny because the Democrats who are in the state and out of the state will say that you're all in on Trump, that you love the president. There's no separation between you and the president. There are some Republicans who will say there's full separation between you and the president of the United States. How would you describe your relationship with the president?
Well, I have a good relationship with the president. He's endorsed me in my reelection, and I have to say the first 2 years of his term of office have been enormously productive. We did historic tax cuts. We've rolled back the overregulation of the Obama era, and the economy has taken off like a rocket. Unemployment is very low. More people are in the workforce. People are optimistic and confident again, which is great. There are some differences I have with the president, to be sure, on things like trade. But I don't have those arguments with him in public. I go see him or call him on the phone like I did on, I guess it was Tuesday night now. And I said, Mr. President, I think let us come up with some better alternatives than shutting down the border. That would be very disruptive of our economy and help lead to unintended consequences. So let the Democrats say what they will. Nobody's going to confuse me for Donald Trump, but I'm proud to support his administration on things that put America back to work and make America a leader again in the world.
Did you hear from any statewide leaders when the president was threatening to close the border? It was one of those. I took it as one of the president's general threats that he puts out there. I don't know how serious he really was about shutting down the border. He likes to throw out there some of these threats to pull attention to some of these issues. But I could see where some statewide leaders were a little apprehensive. You were apprehensive about it. Senator Cruz was apprehensive about it. He was against the idea as well. Did y'all hear from statewide leaders here in Texas?
I think we all knew instinctively that this was a bad idea. And you're right. It may be that this is just the way the president negotiates, the art of the deal. But we do need to get more cooperation from Mexico because we can't stand having this wave of humanity continue to come into the United States. We're a generous country when it comes to legal immigration, but just this chaos and humanitarian and security crisis can't continue.
And okay, this is one thing, and it frustrates a lot of voters out there. border security, that Republicans have the House, Republicans have the Senate, have the White House, border security still can't get done.
Yeah.
Why is that? And how do we get that back on track, or can we get that on track as we move closer to 2020 and beyond?
Well, Chad, we've done a lot more. Certainly there is more that needs to be done, particularly at the ports of entry where you see legitimate trade and commerce come in, but also high-end drugs like heroin, methamphetamine, and the like. So we need to get more technology, more boots on the ground, people to look at these tractor trailers and other places where migrants and drugs are hidden. But the change, this is really a change in the type of immigration we're seeing. Most of what we're seeing now is not coming from Mexico. There's really no new net migration from Mexico. It's from Central America. And they're just clearing out their countries and sending their children and their families to the United States and having them claim asylum. And no border security is going to stop that. We need to change our asylum laws. We could do that relatively easily. My partner in this effort has been Henry Cuellar from Laredo, Texas, one of the last Blue Dog Democrats. But Nancy Pelosi isn't going to let it happen because she views this as Trump's problem, not hers. And unfortunately, her mindset is when Trump wins, she loses. When she wins, Trump loses. And you're not going to get things done on a sensible basis under those circumstances.
Is there a crisis in your mind on the border?
Absolutely. The Border Patrol now is busy handing out diapers and juice boxes to children that are flooding across the border, and the cartels that charge these migrants to bring them up from Central America through Mexico into the United States are getting rich. They do that through human trafficking, through economic migrants, as well as drugs. And so they're the ones who are winning now. We're losing. The American people are losing. These folks are now being just waved through the ports at the border because the Border Patrol can't handle them. And here's really the part that I think most people miss. When the Border Patrol are so busy trying to deal with these families and children, that's when the drug cartels run the drugs through, because they know that those are gaps being created that they're going to exploit. And so more and more Americans continue to die. Last year alone, 70,000 plus Americans died of drug overdoses. So about half of that was opioids, including synthetic fentanyl from Mexico, and heroin. That 90% of the heroin that gets in the United States comes from Mexico. So this is a crisis.
Visiting with U.S. Senator John Cornyn here on the Chad Hasty Show. We have one break that we need to take. We'll do that when we come back. We'll talk more about re-election and also what his focus is going to be if winning re-election 2020 and beyond with Senator John Cornyn when we come back. U.S. Senator John Cornyn in studio with me right now. And Senator, you had earlier when we were talking about re-election and the Democrats setting up the war room here in Texas, you had mentioned Joaquin Castro as someone who may run against you. Talk about where the Texas Democrats are right now. We see nationally, it is I call them the Democrat Socialist Party because right. they have adopted the Bernie Sanders line of thinking. Is that the same here in Texas now with the Castro brothers?
Well, I think with the Castro brothers, it definitely is, because they are more compatible with national Democrats. There are a lot of Texas Democrats, I think, that are troubled with the direction of their party, and they're seeing a lot of their party at the national level kind of walking away from them. I couldn't agree with you more. The whole idea that you could be a democratic socialist, that's an oxymoron. You can't be both.
Right.
Because people need to remember that when you're a socialist, it takes the brute force of government to take the money out of your hand and give it to somebody else. And I just think, maybe this is something we're going to have to re-educate and remind people about, the lessons of history. If you look south to Venezuela, you don't see caravans going to Venezuela, an admittedly socialist country. You see them coming to the United States because we're still the land of opportunity and hope. So I think, as I said earlier, there's a struggle within the Democratic Party. The Texas Democrats, I think, are troubled by the fact that the people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi want to turn Texas into New York and California. And Texas Democrats realize how that's just not going to sell. But that doesn't mean we don't need to campaign. We don't need to have the debate. We need to win the argument and then win the vote.
How for the state of Texas, and you know, out here we call it the West Texas firewall. We live in a bubble, and I think a lot of the listeners live in this frame of mind that, well, we're a red state. We're a deep red state here. I hear it every single day. We're a red state. We're a deep red state. You know, West Texas will have that firewall. How close, in your opinion, are we to becoming a competitive state?
Well, West Texas was the firewall for Ted Cruz because Republicans got slaughtered in the urban and suburban areas, which used to be our stronghold. And so if it weren't for the tremendous turnout in West Texas, Senator Cruz wouldn't have won, and Governor Abbott's margin would have been much thinner. And, you know, as you get at the top of the ticket, the thinner the margin, it means the less coattails there are for people down ballot. And so I started out as a district judge in San Antonio and then on the Supreme Court. So I depended on the top of the ticket to help me, not hurt me. And so that's why we're getting ready early, and why we're going to be working hand in glove with the Trump campaign and the RNC, the Republican National Committee, as well as the Republican Party of Texas. I've talked to the Texas congressional delegation, Speaker Bonin, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Governor Abbott. We're going to be unified because we just can't let Texas on our watch turn blue. But yeah, I think just the fact that people keep saying we're a red state doesn't make it so. And I think we need to look at the handwriting on the wall.
What is your focus? What do you want to do? You know, now and beyond, if winning re-election, what is your focus going to be on?
Well, part of it is stopping bad stuff, but which is, I think, one of my most important jobs.
You're going to get a lot of that from the House right now.
We are. Which, you know, it's funny when the Republicans are the majority in the House, they don't like the Senate because the Senate's much slower, but now they love us because we're the firewall. But that aside, well, what I'd like to see us do is be able to do things like an infrastructure bill. You know, we're a big growing state, and we need the highways and bridges to keep people moving across our roads and safely, and so that's certainly part of it. I'd love to figure this puzzle of immigration. It's one of the most difficult issues. Unfortunately, it's one of those cases where everything is connected with everything else, and that's what brings us down. But in the end, I want to see Texas remain the model for the rest of the country. What we've done here is something special, and I don't want to see it lost, certainly again, not as long as I'm in a position to stop it.
All right. Do you think moving forward we're going to see the nuclear option, the filibuster go away in the Senate?
Well, we did this week on nominations on judges because it's just been the subject of abuse. I would commend to you, if you had a chance to watch Senator McConnell's about a 10-minute response on YouTube to Chuck Schumer's attack. This is something Chuck Schumer created, and it was not the norm for 200 years where one senator could essentially block the president's nominations. Anybody can vote him up or down, but we broke that logjam this week. But nominations are going to continue to be front and center. We're going to continue to fill the courts. We've confirmed well over 90 federal new judges. We've got about 7 or 8 new Texas federal judges in the pipeline, and that's going to be a priority. So we're going to continue to do what we were sent to Washington to do.
Visiting with U.S. Senator John Cornyn, about to wrap up our interview. Tell folks, just real quick, what they need to be paying attention to as you continue your campaign.
Well, if they'd like to check us out at johncornyn.com, they can get information about that, about us, and about what we're up to. And I'll be traveling in the state, as I always do, to try to talk and listen, and mainly listen to start with. I've found that in politics, a lot of politicians don't listen very well.
Right.
So I like to listen first and then have a conversation about where people want our state and our country to go. So I'll be doing a lot of that.
Senator Cornyn, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chad.